We were looking at rumination, we're looking at eating minutes, grazing behaviour, but also movement and resting. But you add GPS to that information, and man, it's incredible visibility of where a cow is physically on the farm. It's incredible how much more you can actually tell in terms of, how cows are interacting with each other, interacting within their group, and how that actually relates to some of the cow specific sensor metrics that you're capturing. So it's incredible, and it's exciting from my end, because creating a tag in New Zealand for New Zealand cows, and that gives us so much information. So it's pretty exciting. Yeah, wow. So you can actually track locomotion and position. So even for lameness, you could say, look, this cow is normally in the top third cows to the shed. Now she's in the last third. Something's causing her to walk slower, or
well, we're working on step counting at the moment. I'll be going into the next iteration. So we want to be mapping the actual cow's trending velocity over time. So the cow normally walks this fast. She's normally at the front of the mob.
Welcome to the myCOW podcast. And my name's Shaun, and I've enjoyed over 20 years working with New Zealand farmers with dairy nutrition and cow health. Now, a special thank you goes out to Advanced Nutrition as our primary supporter. The focus of this podcast is to be a vehicle for delivering relevant insights to dairy farmers and ag professionals, all to help drive cow efficiency and farm business profitability, because stronger businesses are more sustainable and help to build stronger communities. Welcome everyone to the myCOW podcast. Awesome to have you on. I've got a great interview for you today. I won't say this morning because now it's afternoon, but who knows when you're listening to this. But we've got Baden with us from ProTag. Now, he is the founder and he'll tell you all about himself. But I'm going to throw this to offside of Ben, who's been doing an awesome job on the podcast. So he's going to ask some questions and we're going to have at it. So yeah, I'm excited to sort of teasing apart a few more details around what we can do with wearables on farm and how we're actually pushing the boundaries with what wearables can tell us. And so Baden's going to tell us all about that. And over to you, Ben.
Thanks, Shaun. Yeah, no, it's been awesome to hear a bit more about ProTag becoming available and some of the cool things that you guys are doing in the tech space. I'm personally passionate from the hardware side of things, and hearing, for instance, your presentation at the hardware meetup was really, really exciting, especially with it coming from a New Zealand company and incorporating all of this new technology into an accessible device for farmers. So I guess the first question is, would you be able to give us a bit of introduction about yourself and what gets you up and gets you excited in the morning for farming?
Yeah, cheers, Ben. Cheers, Shaun. I'm one of the founders of ProTag. We've been working on this for quite a few years now. But I grew up on a small sheep farm down in Dunedin. Nothing rigorous, pretty small, like 16 acres. We had 50 of the sheep, and most intense stuff we kind of had to do was get up in the morning and break ice on water troughs and chase sheep up and down to get them out of floodwaters when the river flooded. But it certainly gave me the appreciation for how much gumshoe you need to kind of get value out of the ground, out of your farm, out of your animals. And then when I went to university and started my career in engineering, the opportunity came up to kind of put all those learnings back into agriculture. And obviously agriculture is such a big part of what we do here in New Zealand. We lead the world in a lot of ways with our livestock farming, and we set that example. So for me, the opportunity to apply the technical and engineering skills that I'd spent years developing back in that industry that was such a formative part of my upbringing was really special opportunity. So I didn't come from a big dairy farm or a big beef farm. Definitely jumping at the opportunity to partake in its evolution, and doing so out of a huge amount of pride for what our farmers have done and how we're seen on the world stage.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, it's really cool to hear about the background, and it always makes a difference when you've got a history and understanding the farming and especially on the ground experience. So I imagine that's kind of played into the story of ProTag. So, but yeah, I guess before we jump into a bit about the strengths and about the product, could you maybe give us an overview of what the product is and what you were trying to achieve at ProTag?
Yeah, so ProTag is developing livestock wearables. Our current product we've been focused on is our lightweight, low-cost smart ear tags. So these are little 23-gram ear tags that sit on the back of the cow's ear. They connect just like any old ear tag and track the behaviour and location of that animal in near real time. So our current tags will send messages every 5 minutes odd back to a gateway that sits on the milking shed. And with that, we can get a pretty onto it real-time view of your entire farm's operation, where those cows are going to the milking shed, how long they've spent there, when they're moving back to the paddock, which races they traversed, which ones made it back first, which ones made it back last. There's a huge amount of richness to that data that we can pull out. And the core part of what we're focused on is applying behaviour to location. So without the location piece providing context, you're basically interpreting behaviours blind, right? There's a huge difference between the behaviour exhibited by an animal when she's standing on the feed pad, in the paddock, in the race, in the shed, versus, across all those different domains, right? So without the context, how are you able to really interpret that accurately? You can look at the time, but times and schedules on farms often change, right? Different farms operate differently. So with location, we're able to put the behaviour in context and really develop far more meaningful insights. So location gets ingested into all the analysis we do around heat detection, for example. We're just starting to now look into lameness and locomotion scoring. And of course, there's this huge piece of what we do, which is the farm-wide context pasture utilization. We can see automatically which mobs are in which paddocks. We can see which cows are in which mob, right? You open the app, you see all your cows color-coded on the map. When the pink dot is in with the blue dots, why? That sort of just logistics is new to farm management to an extent. So there's
cool.
a huge amount that we're doing.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. It's cool because it's basically like an accelerometer or a standard collar that you'd find on a cow, but with GPS and location added to it, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So basically, rather than running around with one eye open, you've got two eyes open.
Or three.
Super useful.
One up there, one down here.
Yeah. We just keep adding eyes. I love it. Now on this, I'm going to back it up a little bit. Can you please hold the ear tag? Because I've seen these things in person. They're super cool. Can you hold it in front of the camera so we can see it? So it's got a solar panel on one side, and then it's obviously sealed on the other. Yeah, that's cool. What a great little device. And so these are designed in New Zealand by Kiwis and made overseas, or components overseas and assembled in New Zealand? Is that?
Yeah. Like everything, all components come from various parts of the world.
Yeah.
And we assemble it, hand assemble them currently here in New Zealand once we get all the parts. So proper.
Yeah, what an awesome little unit, and super cool that it's Kiwi made. Would you say that developing the algorithms and the like the whole system has actually been centered around pastoral farming?
Yeah. So absolutely, that was the big opportunity that we saw when we started out building ProTag. It was looking at the legacy products that farmers have access to out of Europe and the Middle East, and then obviously Halter coming in and looking at showing what's possible if money and cost is not a problem at all. There's this big opportunity in the middle. Like the legacy products were never really designed for pastoral farming. They have short-range radios, no location attributes, basically activity trackers. They do a great job for what they've been sold to do. And you've got some fantastic new products like smart boluses coming through that give you another level of insight. But the location piece has always been elusive in an affordable way. And I think what we've seen with the amazing work that Halter's been doing is showing the value of location. And what we're aiming to do is kind of come in as a low-cost, affordable ear tag you can slap on like any other ear tag from calves to young age cows, because it's not a very heavy device. And you can start tracking all that vital information about your farm, everything.
Cool. So if you're a farmer out there and you're like, oh, we've got a pretty simple, well set up farm, where you're kind of slotting yourself in the market, or
We're not going to move your fences, but we will tell you where that paddock's been grazed, when the break fence was dropped, and we'll give you the tools to make those decisions. We can look at exactly where cows are spending time grazing in the paddock. We can see time where they're actually chilling at night and ruminating and sleeping. Those are two very different spatial patterns, and it's spatial temporal. Like there's a lot of data there. So yeah, if you're interested in like the next step of what wearables can do for your farm beyond just your 6 or 10 weeks, mating season, if you want insight into the transition period, into everything throughout the year, then that's what we're aiming to fill. But at the price point that makes it accessible for every farmer.
Cool. Oh, I like it.
What really got you to the point where you decided to go down the route of choosing to do an ear tag?
It was simplicity and it was data. To not get too far in the weeds, data from the ear of the cow has a lot more value to us. Well, that was the initial hypothesis, and it's proving quite true. Being on the ear, you're closer to the emotive kind of center of the animal. Obviously, cow ears tell you quite a lot about what that cow's thinking. So we wanted to be able to capture that information. Being close to the jaw of the animal gives us more sensitivity to jaw movements. There's some work that we want to get into soon where we look at the bite counting, right? So actually looking at bite, the cadence, but not just the cadence, but the strength. Some farm consultants will walk into a paddock and poke up some grass and snap it and tell you how good that grass is. We want to see if that can be pulled out from bite counting and bite tracking. And then rumination periods. If we're on the ear of the cow, you can see it in the data. If you had all the time in the world, I'd show you some spectrum. But you can see when the cow's ruminating, chewing the cud, and when they swallow, and when they start again, when they swallow, and you can see how that changes over time. And then you can see them wake up or go to sleep. And all these things really fine signals. So data on the ear, fantastic. But more than that, we wanted the product to be accessible. So we wanted it to just basically function as an existing ear tag. Take it out of the box, put it on, use your existing universal applicator, mate it with whatever other visual IDs or systems you use, and off you go. So simplicity, ease of use was a big part of our goal, because we didn't want to go out to a farm and have to teach people how to put collars on properly. Farmers know how ear tags function, so we've been pushing to get our ear tag as universal and as simple as possible.
Yeah, cool. I can imagine that's had a few challenges associated with it when trying to take a whole lot of technology and cram it into something that's as close to a piece of plastic as possible, right?
Oh yeah, the engineers and the chipset vendors and everyone that we talk to on the engineering side, you want to worry about that 0.1 of a gram? Really? We can't put that on there because weight or size, and this chip won't fit because of that. You get a lot of strange looks when you tell them what you're trying to optimize. But we started with a 45 gram tag, and now we're down to a 22.8 gram tag, just by focusing on what's important and making sure animal comfort is obviously a priority. Even to the extent that we round off the corners of our flexi tabs perfectly smooth, so there's no irritation if this rotates, and we put little flexible break points in here so that it flexes in the right place and we smooth everything off, which is challenging while also keeping this to be reusable, right? So our flexible tabs, flexi tabs for want of a better name, just a flexible piece of plastic, and if you need to cut them off, you can just pop that out and then put another one on and reuse the tag. So the tags are fully reusable, they're fully sealed units, and our vision is that when these do reach end of life, you can return them to us, we'll cut them open and reuse the electronics, because the only thing that's going to degrade over time is the plastic getting scratched up too much. So we do put a ceramic anti-scratch coating on that. That's pretty robust. But batteries degrade, solar panels degrade. But the electronics can be reused indefinite, mostly.
Yeah, amazing. I'm sure Shaun will want to ask you a bunch of questions around the measurements and the data that you're collecting and the information you're collecting. So what's kind of the core things that you're measuring of the cow at the moment? And how did you get to those decision points?
So currently the tag has motion sensors in it. So we use a variety of motion sensors, accelerometers, magnetometers, and that tracks the orientation of the tag. And by virtue of it being on the cow, we look at its behaviour. So we're constantly recording all that data, computing it, and determining what the cow's behaviour is on a matter of seconds, right? So every few seconds we go, oh, the cow was grazing, the cow was ruminating, the cow was sleeping. That is then combined with location. So location is obviously GPS, and we capture that on a regular cadence of 10 to 15 minutes. It goes up and down depending on the battery level, and then send that off to the cloud where we do a bunch more stuff. The cloud is where we will look at those behaviors within the context of the farm, basically. So we look at, what the mob attributes are. Is one of these cows deviating from the mob trends? We look at, obviously, her long-term trends. We look at the spikes in activity that might correspond with the heat event. We look at social groupings of cows. You go, oh, these cows are all kind of showing a heightened increase in activity. And maybe that means something, right? And then we map those cow movements around the farm. So there's a bunch of fancy algorithms we do to determine the cow paddock assignments and the history of movements of cows to races, to sheds, to feed pads, back to races, back to paddocks. And we look at that all over time, and then we aggregate that. So while, we have a mob history, a mob collection of cows that are grazing together, we also track the true grazing history, because those two things never get reconciled perfectly, right? So we process things as they are and as they're labeled to be. We can look at grazing events. We see how long they were, when they entered, when they left, when they went to the fodder beet, when they came back. Look at consumption behavior across that grazing event. So we can see, it's quite fun. You can see the cows when they first enter a full paddock, they'll just spread out crazy, right? And then they do this kind of saying, sound effects included. And you can see how that happens over time, the grazing bout, and then there's rumination, and then another grazing, and they'll go down for their nap and wake up in the morning at 6, 7 o'clock before milking, and then they might have a bit of grazing if there's enough grass left, or they might just sit by the fence. You can start looking at the kind of shelter seeking behavior. So we're now working on the shelter kind of metrics on the farm. So New Zealand's fantastic. The 3D scanned the entire country, right? It's wild. But everywhere you can get a LiDAR scan. We ingest that into the farm, and we can look at where the trees are, where the low-lying terrain is, where they're seeking shelter from that wind and rain, where they're seeking shelter from the sun. And we're looking to characterize that now. Water troughs, obviously another one. We can look at where they're spending time when they're hanging out at water troughs, collectively or individually. And individually on cows. When those cows enter that grazing event, they don't all kind of spread out, right? So there's this concept of a spread function. Some cows will enter the paddock and just hang out by the gate. Some cows will go to the other end and then zip back and forth everywhere, and they'll have a really high spread. Other cows will have really low spread. So we expose that, and we throw out alerts. If a cow's just entered the paddock and just hasn't really spread out as expected, you can get alerted on that. So it's a heap of
incredible,
stuff. Every time we look, we find more and more that we want to distill. But of course, the distilling process is where we need to understand where the value is. Getting it from an engineer and data science perspective is one thing, but deriving meaningful decision-making insights is a completely other thing.
That's where I come in. So it's good.
Yeah.
It's amazing because I do a lot with collar technology. We were looking at rumination, we're looking at eating minutes, grazing behaviour, but also movement and resting. But you add GPS to that information, and man, it's incredible. How visual, visibility of where a cow is physically on the farm. It's incredible how much more you can actually tell in terms of how cows are interacting with each other, interacting within their group, and how that actually relates to some of the cow specific sensor metrics that you're capturing. So it's incredible, and it's exciting from my end because we're creating a tag in New Zealand for New Zealand cows that is affordable for every farmer. I think anyway, especially long term. That gives us so much information, so it's pretty exciting. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you've been learning around, just specifically in terms of social interaction with the GPS and the rumination eating minute data, and how that data actually relates back to reproductive success in the cow?
Yeah, well, it's still pretty early days with us on that one, but you can definitely identify these social groups, right? So weirdly, you have these cows, even if they're not on heat, they'll kind of just graze together. You have this leader mentality, right? So if the main cluster of cows heads off to the corner, they'll start grazing that one, and then these other ones are spread out. What we're trying to do now is understand here what that means. So post-grazing residuals is a big thing that we're looking into. We obviously need to collect a lot of data on what the actual post-grazing residuals are, and this is where collaborations with satellite pasture providers, stuff like that come in. So we can collect that data and ultimately be able to say, look, right now, 2 hours before you were going to shift those cows might be a good time to shift those cows. So that's kind of where we're heading on that route. The social groupings are more of our focus on the heat detection side of things. So looking at which clusters of cows are kind of over time spending time together. It's kind of like a temporal trend sort of deal. Where we want to go is looking at the order to the milking shed and back. So obviously that has a big indicator on the social hierarchy of the mob in general. And if we can identify which are the leader cows, and if those leader cows have shifted, that might not be an obvious signal from a behavior perspective, but from a social perspective, that might tell us something. It's certainly worth a look, right? If the cow that's always at the front shows up at the back, if the farmer's aware of those cows, they'll pull that out and go, oh, something might be wrong, right? Why has she done that? So we want to just make that insight available to everyone.
Yeah, wow. So you can actually track locomotion and position. So even for lameness, you could say, look, this cow is normally in the top third cows to the shed. Now she's in the last third. Something's, causing her to walk slower or...
Well, we're working on, step counting at the moment. I'll be going into the next iteration. So we want to be mapping the actual cow's trending velocity over time. So the cow normally walks this fast. She's normally at the front of the mob. Now she's walking this fast, or we're seeing a slight detrend in that. That isn't expected given the mob she's been in or the distance she's traveled today, right? So you have to take the whole collective view. One of the without getting too far in the weeds, one of the big data science projects we're working on is kind of building an individual model for every cow. So it's kind of, you have the cow, and then you have in the digital world this digital twin of the cow, and that did everything. And everything, like the weather conditions, the paddock, the time she's been in the paddock, the grass that was there, around that, the social groups, the mob's trending behaviors, all this stuff goes into this digital twin of the cow, and then we track what that cow's normal is. And the idea from a data science perspective is to just have a latent space, it's called, which is basically the levers that go into that black box that describe what might be going on with her. So one of those levers may be lameness, and then we can pull that out and go, oh, well, we're seeing this trend in her behavior compared to the digital understanding of her behavior that is affected by this digital latent space of lameness going down. Very, very in the future sort of thing. But as we collect more and more data, our understanding of what a cow is and what she is on a dairy farm versus beef farm and all that stuff will go up.
Yeah,
and we'll be
cool.
able to make sense of it. But it's
Yeah,
fascinating.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. That's genuinely quite impressive. I guess a question for that is, where are you getting these ideas from? There's a fantastic number of ideas that are coming in, and there's obviously it sounds like a lot of research has come into this. How have you worked out what to work on next?
Well, I'll let you know when I figure that out. We get a lot of amazing ideas from having these sorts of conversations, right? Talking to domain experts. I'm not a domain expert in pasture management or animal nutrition or anything like that, right? I'm an engineer from Auckland. So we get that insight from talking to people that know what they're talking about. Researchers in the field looking into animal efficiency. Animal efficiency, a massive thing. If you can model the feed intake of a cow by looking at the bite counts per minute and swallowing and all this stuff over time to understand the feed intake of that cow, then you can start mapping that against the outputs of that cow and get a per cow efficiency metric, right? That's truly accurate. And what goes up and down with cow efficiency? Greenhouse gas emissions. What's the best way to long-term solve greenhouse gas emissions and future-proof our industry? Solving and improving the genetics based on cow efficiency. So there's so many researchers genuinely excited about where this technology is going and what it's going to be able to do for their improvements over time. Instead of just looking at the breeding worth as a nebulous metric from genetics companies, you can actually start seeing where that's coming from and mapping it to the actual performance of the cow on the farm. It's going to be massive, not just for dairy, like for beef, like an industry that hasn't had access to technology, that hasn't had access to genetic improvements on scale, right? It's farming in 10 years is going to be very different when every cow has a wearable.
It's amazing. I love it. Yeah, there's certainly like when you start talking cow efficiency, you're certainly talking my language. It's very, very cool. Like, do you think realistically we can use some of the like the metrics, like your walking, like your bite counting, swallowing, bolus swallowing, all those sort of things? You think we can actually calculate how many kilos of dry matter each cow is eating each day?
I do, undoubtedly.
Wow.
I think it's going to be akin to you sitting there looking at that cow 24/7, writing down. She took one bite. Oh, tally. She took 5 bites. Those bites had this much effective force. Therefore, we can assume that the grass had this level of quality, or we know what the grass quality was because we had a satellite image before they entered the paddock. And then you're looking at, your bolus counts, your patterns over time. How long did she actually chew each cud? That's going to mean something, right, for that individual cow per se. But on aggregate, we'll be able to learn something from that. We already know that animal efficiency very strongly correlates with how they're consuming grass, right? You'll know this, Shaun. Like, you've got some research that they did in sheep, I think, Dairy NZ or Ag Research did. Dairy NZ sheep. Ag Research they did. They were able to capture the kind of gluttonous versus non-gluttonous behavior of grazing. And that correlated to how efficient the animal was and therefore how much methane it produced. We can see that in the data today. Like, I can give you a list of your 10 top cows that are more sensible in how they graze, and I can give you a list of the cows that are more gluttonous that would graze and then rest for a long time. Like, I can do that now. Many wearables probably can, if they wanted to. It's just we can have that location context. We can tell you what they were on, and we can normalize for that. We can normalize they were 200 cows in this paddock. The paddock was this big. It was this type of crop, and they spent this time in this corner of it. And that's where we can go a step further. So yeah, absolutely. Once we get
That's interesting. Yeah, so because you have more visibility, you can actually filter out a lot of the noise, basically, that we're getting from your rumination 80-minute data by bringing in metrics like where on the farm were they grazing? Was that a young grass paddock, an older grass paddock, and what was the cover in that paddock? And that's really cool. That's exciting. Yeah. Sorry, Ben, you had a question?
Yeah. I was going to ask, so what's kind of involved from the farmer side in order to start using this information, or in sort of, well, first of all, what's involved to set up a ProTag system on a farm?
Right. So today we use a simple gateway to set up on your farm. We're still in the kind of pilot phase, so we're not mass available yet. But if you wanted to be a pilot farmer, what we'd do is we'd take a digital map of your farm. We would put a natural RF simulator to see where we need to put the gateway. Typically, for most flat farms, we only need one gateway. We may add extra gateways if there's a blind spot up on the hill, but it's not a very onerous thing. The gateways we pay for, we just go and shove them up on the milking shed typically, because that gives plenty of good coverage. And then we chuck the tags on the cows, and away we go. During our pilot phase, we visit all our farms every week. We want to make sure that the cows are doing well. We're still obviously validating all the hardware, fits our expectations and all this stuff. So we are quite hands-on, which is why our pilot phase is very selective. But essentially, we're aiming for this really easy onboarding, generated by virtue of it being an AirTag that is really simple to deploy. In the near future, we'll be doing away with the gateways on the milking shed completely. We are currently exploring the technologies for mobile connectivity. So basically, every device becomes a tiny little mobile phone that talks to your cell towers, but it also now talks to satellites. You can see on iPhones, 1NZ have their iPhone kind of talk to the satellites, Starlink satellites deal. That is going to be rolled out everywhere for everything in the near future, and we're currently doing some prototyping around that. And there's some other great technologies as well. Satellite companies that have built old satellite systems are transitioning into some really new standards-based IoT systems that will let us access globally without having to worry about dealing with local mobile network operators. And it's going to change how things are done completely. So that fulfills our vision of this. You go to our website, you type in the address, upload your farm map, and we send you the tags, and it just works.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. No, it's really exciting having this satellite aspect coming into play, because suddenly you can see the cow all the way from, regardless of where they end up, right? You always have farms that are out of coverage, out of sight, and you end up in these scenarios where you can't, or you're one of the few that can't connect. Whereas this removes that limitation, I guess. So from the hardware side of things, it's at the moment it's as simple as getting your gateways, installing your ear tags, and getting it set up and connected in. Once the information is collecting off the tags, how is the farmer interacting with those on a day-to-day basis?
So we have an app, basically, Android, iPhone. You just log into that and you'll see the entire digital twin of your farm, first and foremost. See where your cows are, which cows are in which mobs. You can see instantly where your grazing history is. You can go to our workspaces and see, what my pasture readiness is, what's the rested periods for my paddocks, which ones I've marked as being cut on this day, which ones have been grazed, all that stuff. Set up your alerts for what interests you, mob movements to different paddocks, anomaly alerts for your health and wellness, and obviously heat detection. You can go in, and when it's the right time of the year, you can start seeing all your heats coming through in real time every day. See which ones you need to draft out and mark them as submitted, and away you go.
So what's the input that's required from the farmer then in that scenario? Is it for them to go through and basically validate things within the app, or?
There is the ability to validate. So if the farmer thinks we've got the heat detection wrong, they can flag it as wrong, and we'll take that and goes back into the system, and that system gets better. Ultimately, it needs to be as simple as possible. So we'll we'll have a drafting system set up shortly. It will plug into your ProTag systems or any other drafting gates out there, either through Minder or directly. So you can set it up to auto draft those cows every morning. They'll just be there waiting for you. Or if you don't have a drafting system, our tags light up in whatever color you want. So you can set them flashing in the morning, red, if you want to draft them out for heat. And you can just have your staff, drafting them out manually when they see the red flashing light, or they see the pink flashing light, or whatever color you want. So there shouldn't be a real obstacle to getting that benefit. And that's, I think, been an obstacle that's persisted for a bit too long. A lot of farmers would love wearables, but you don't need a drafting gate anymore.
Interesting. What about what's the cost of the system? So you talked a bit about the pilot farms. Is it commercially available or not yet?
We're kind of it is very, very soon. TM. We're going through this pilot phase, and we don't want to push too hard until we've guaranteed customer success and the animals' success, basically. So we're taking pre-orders at the moment for late 2026, early 2027 deployments, and we'll be aiming to deliver the first commercial stuff in those periods. It'll be a first kind of come, first serve. We still want to have a very high touch point for the first farms that we bring in on our early adopter kind of schedule. So we've got pilots going on now. We've got early adopters that will be 2026 to early 2027, which will be very high touch point again. And then beyond that, we'll open it up for a mass adoption. And it'll be as simple as, at that point, going to our website, giving us a buzz, putting in your farm details and upload a farm map. And we'll get stuff out to you.
Cool. Sounds simple. And do you have an idea of the cost or not yet?
So for the early adopters, we're looking at around $4 per cow per month on a lease agreement. This is obviously still in flux, so things are getting very expensive right now and changing daily. Ben, you probably know full well about the dynamics involved there. So whether or not we're able to meet that or it needs to be a little bit more expensive is yet to be determined. So that's what we're aiming for. And then for a full commercial launch, right now we're looking at $5 per cow per month.
Okay.
So
it's quite comparable to a lot of the wearable technologies out there.
And the reason for the lease is so that we can take ownership of the hardware. Basically, if it doesn't work, we'll replace it. And you don't have to worry about it, basically. So it removes that initial risk. Obviously, we're a young company without a huge track record, so we want to make it as seamless as possible. We're still finalizing the details, but if you wanted to get a green loan or something to help pay for this technology, we'll likely have a discount or something for an upfront payment over 2 years, where you can kind of come and pay for that 2-year upfront. It's great for us because it allows us to get the money to make the things, and it's hopefully great for the farmers as well. So not finalized yet, but we'll be having something like that when we have that commercial launch.
Cool. So
just to mention.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say about the leasing side of things. I heard recently about a few groups that obviously the benefit of being on the leasing system meant with the 4G and 3G changeover, the people who were involved in that and they had devices installed that were previously 3G, if they were on a lease system, they never saw any issues because the device just got replaced. Whereas if you were stuck with a 3G device, you couldn't connect to the cell towers with the very rare change that's happened in technology.
But it also allows us like in a similar way, it allows us to manage that change as well. So while our current pilots and likely early adopters will be using our LoRa-based tags, if those tags fail or need to be replaced, we'll be slowly replacing them with the new ones as they come out, right? So you'll always have access to the latest stuff, as long as it's doing its job. Obviously, if the LoRa tags are working perfectly fine, we're not going to be able to go out and swap them all out. Nor should we want to, because that'd be a bit of an undertaking. But it allows us to keep our fleet as relevant and as modern as we can.
Cool.
Yeah,
Oh,
nice.
I like it. So the subscription cost per cow, does that cover subscription for the software or the app as well?
Yep.
And is there extra infrastructure farmers have to buy, sensors and towers and that sort of thing?
No. For our pilots and early adopters, we'll be covering the cost of the gateways. And then, as I said, our vision is to move away from that entirely anyway. And then the service fee will cover the ongoing connectivity costs of the mobile networks or satellite networks, whatever needs to be used at that time.
Cool. It's really clever. Smart too, because if you move the cows off farm, well, you're still going to get metrics, aren't you? You don't have to take a tower or whatever with them.
Tower down here for sure.
Yeah.
That's quite an exciting proposition, actually. Obviously, we've got a lot of cows that move farms every year or so here in New Zealand. A lot of farmers that own the farm, own the cows, but not the farm.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that seamlessness allows those people to benefit from this tech just as well.
Yeah, super cool. And even if you sold the herd, the tag in theory could just go off the cow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Background in operations could benefit from this as well. We've got a couple of customers on the roadmap that background for a few years, bring those young calves up. They want the technology, and then when they might go back to their home farm, that tech can just go with them if the new farmer is willing to kind of take that on.
Cool. So what are the key things you'd like to see shift on farm with your technology? Like you talked a bit about feed conversion efficiency or cow efficiency. Like, do you have any sort of any like goals that you're really aiming to hit with the technology on farm?
There's a couple. I would love for the technology to be able to produce more tangible value, or the diligent use of this technology to make better decisions, right? So you've got fantastic programs already that producers and processors have. Your Lead with Pride by Simlay is a fantastic example. It'd be fantastic if there was a step above that, right? Like, I've got this technology, I'm doing this diligently, I'm making these decisions in a data-informed way. I have got this validation that my cows were not on sloped land or were not in boggy paddocks. Can I get a kickback? Can I get a financial benefit from taking this approach beyond just the financial incentives of having more productive cows in the first place, right? That'd be a nice incentive to see the industry going. We talk collectively at the high level about traceability, right? And until every cow is traced, like, how can we possibly have this high level view of what traceability means for us as a society? And that's a big thing happening overseas, Argentina, Brazil right now, with the rainforests and the new qualifications those farmers have for tracking their cows and making sure they're not in rainforest land. That can come back down once every cow is tracked, particularly from a location piece. That'd be fun.
Yeah. How cool would it be? In Asia, you could scan the QR code on a bottle of milk or a can of milk powder. Go on an app and it shoots you straight to the farm that where the cows are that actually produce that product. You can see those cows moving around.
Yeah, and it's kind of an artifact of our large processors, right? Most of our milk goes into the same vat. It's not that way up in Ireland, for example. They've got a lot of disparate processors, and they can have different value propositions. You've got the happy cow guys in New Zealand trying to do this on a hyper-local scale. Being very, very selective about the cows that they get milk from, and they're creating a value proposition around that. So it is possible. It just requires the onus to be on the producer or the processor. Unfortunately, most of our milk goes overseas. So the leverage us domestic consumers have to enact that change is quite little. This is why we still pay so much for a bar of butter, right? So market dynamics will will inevitably play out in the end. But that's the dream, I think. I think a lot of farmers would like to see that their efforts are recognised in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it makes sense because there's a lot more incentives around doing the job well now. And so if we have more traceability, more visibility, then of course that's going to mean that farmers will be able to better prove that they qualify for a lot of these incentives. So
we've got the fantastic NATE tag system and stuff that has set the baseline for what's possible, but that itself could be completely overhauled with smart NATE tags. Imagine we could just have cows going onto a truck that were automatically detected via the Bluetooth sensors in the truck or something, right? There's a huge amount of room for automating compliance and getting that benefit kicked back downstream.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, super exciting. I think there's just by joining something very simple like your rumination and your cow metrics with GPS, it just opens up a whole new world for what we can do and how we can drive efficiency. So, and it's all developed right here in New Zealand. Very cool.
Yep, all here in New Zealand, and it's just the start. The more we dig in, the more we see, the more patterns we spot, the more value we're going to be able to create. Like up until recently, when companies like ourselves and Holder started looking at location and rumination and behaviour, like no massive data sets of this existed, right? So we're only just scratching the surface of what's possible. The research is very new, but very exciting.
Yeah, that's super cool. I love it.
Yeah, I can imagine you've got a lot of, as soon as you started kind of unpacking the amount of data that you could collect about the information on the cows that you could collect, imagine the kind of the mind map just expanded. So I'm sure you've probably done a lot of thinking around it, but what for you is the parts that you're most excited to start being able to compare or maybe see across farms?
Yeah, you touch on an excellent point. The ability to kind of benchmark against a generic farm and put like in the same location would be fantastic, right? So you can imagine it like gamifying farming. It's a weird word. I don't quite like it, but for want of a better word, you could gamify farming in the sense that, hey, look, my performance is this. Farms of a similar size in a similar location with a similar type of soil and similar type of environmental condition, we're doing this and achieving this. And this is how they were performing. And this is the decisions they will make given the situation. And this is how you were doing it. So being able to tease the impact of decisions apart and automatically extract that as improvement opportunities for farmers once we have the scale, I think would be absolutely fantastic. You can imagine waking up in the morning, looking at the app on your phone, seeing where your cows are, making sure they're all happy and still grazing, and then saying, okay, based on this and this weather condition, we suggest that you might do this, and that should lead to this outcome, and off you go. And actually having it justifiable and validated based on this massive data that we collected from other cows and other farms. I think that'd be really cool.
Absolutely. Very cool. Awesome. Oh, well, thanks heaps for your time, Baden. I really appreciate it, mate. It's fascinating. Like I met you, about probably a year ago now, and I really enjoyed watching your journey, and it's exciting to see where you're going. So you've been at this about 3 years, is that right? Or a little bit longer?
A little bit over that now.
A little bit over, yeah. You've come a long way in 3 years, mate. So very, very cool.
Cheers. No, it's been a journey. It's been a roller coaster, but we're finally getting to the point where there's pudding. The proof is in the pudding, and we're finally getting there, and it's really exciting seeing how all this comes together.
Yep. Yeah, awesome. Oh, that's super cool. Well, thanks again for your time. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to seeing it out on farm, seeing how farmers are benefiting from the technology, and I'm sure both myself and Ben will get some great benefit out of the metrics that come through as well, which is really cool. So,
well, I'm really excited to see where it can go, right? I think getting the data that we're collecting into the hands of people like yourselves, the people like AIMA, right, on improving pasture growth models, we've got this thesis of just sending the data to wherever it can go, because ultimately if our farmers can 2x the value of their data by sharing it with another provider such as yourselves, or then why not? Sometimes 1 + 1 can equal 3, and I think in such an industry as we have, I think that's definitely the case.
Absolutely. It's a great Kiwi way of explaining it. Kiwis are good at sharing and quite collaborative. So yeah, I enjoy that. Awesome. Cool. Oh, thanks heaps for jumping on and listening to the podcast. I hope you got heaps out of it. And like and subscribe if it's added any value to your day or you've just enjoyed the conversation. And look forward to having you on next time. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Cheers all. See ya.
Cheers.